My name is Eli Kranzberg, and welcome to Pro Tools 11 Explained. I'm really pumped about these videos, the latest, greatest, best, newest version of Pro Tools, one of the best DAWs around. Now, before we jump in, I want to go over a few basic concepts that I want you to familiarize yourself with. At the core of the whole system of working with Pro Tools, we have a Pro Tools session folder, and that exists on your hard drive. And within that, we have various subfolders containing various media, like audio files for audio recordings. And we also have the Pro Tools session file, and this is the heart and soul of the whole system of working in Pro Tools. We double-click the session file, and we work within that. Now, within the session file, we have tracks. We do our work on tracks, and there are various different types of tracks. The predominantly used types of tracks are audio tracks and other instrument or MIDI tracks. Now, on audio tracks, we play, record, and edit audio, meaning real sound that is captured either through a microphone or into your audio interface, like from a guitar jack or something like that. So we record audio, and as we record audio on a track in our Pro Tools session, a new file is generated, a new audio file, and it's stored in the audio files folder in one of the media folders, and it's referenced by the Pro Tools session. So we record audio, and then on the audio track, we work with what are called clips. And a clip is either a portion of an audio file or all of the audio file. But basically, we can have multiple clips all referencing the same audio file or different audio files, all on various audio tracks. So audio clips exist on audio tracks, and clips reference the audio files that exist in the media folder. We can also have automation data on an audio track, but predominantly we work with clips. Now, we also have MIDI type of data, and unlike audio, this doesn't contain any actual sound. It's not the sound of a voice or a guitar. It's a set of instructions that are sent out either to a software instrument or an external synthesizer, and the instructions communicate things like what note to play, when to play it in the bar, how loud to play it, how long the note should last for, and that kind of thing. And the sound that's generated is determined by the source that it's triggering. And it could be, as I say, an external synthesizer or a software instrument. So we work with MIDI data on instrument tracks or MIDI tracks. They each have slightly different uses. We'll get to those in the videos. And on the instrument or MIDI tracks, we have clips. And those are MIDI clips, and they contain the instructions. We can also have automation data on these tracks. There are other types of tracks. There are auxiliary tracks, master tracks. I'm not going to look at those for the moment. These are just the basics that I want you to wrap your head around as we start with Pro Tools. So I'm going to start now, and I'm going to launch the application, and we're going to look at what happens when it actually boots up. So you're going to go through this startup process where it's going to scan all your plugins and make sure everything's authorized okay. You should see the version 11 over there. And you're going to get presented with this quick start dialog box. So there are various things we can do here. We can do one of four things. We can create a session from one of the templates that ships with Pro Tools or a user-defined template, but for now we're looking at the factory templates. We can create a blank session. We can open a recent session, and you'll see a history of all your recent sessions in here. I only have one right now. Or we can open a session, meaning any session that exists on your hard drive, and it doesn't have to be a recent one. Now, we can move through these with the mouse buttons, or we can use the keyboard shortcut Command with the up-down arrows on Mac, and on Windows, that's Control with the up-down arrows. Now, each of these has various parameters that we can choose from when we're actually creating a session. So we'll look at those in a moment. I just want to first point this out to you, the Show Quick Start dialog when Pro Tools starts. We can disable it so that you don't see this splash screen when it starts up. And if you disable it, you can re-enable it in the preferences, so no worries. But for now, I'm going to leave it on. So we can create a session from a template. We can choose templates there, and there are various categories of templates. And it's fun to open some of them and just explore and see how some of the sessions are laid out to give you an idea of what Pro Tools can do and what it looks like with fuller sessions. And we can create a blank session, and we can open a recent session or open a session. Now for these two, we have parameters to choose from to determine the audio file formats and other various settings pertaining to the session we're about to create. So basically, we can choose the audio file type that we're going to work with, broadcast wave or AIFF, and broadcast wave is more cross-platform compatible with Windows and Mac operating systems, and it also contains timestamp information on the audio files. AIFF is more of a Mac format, although most Windows systems do recognize it as well. Let's stick with broadcast wave format for now. The bit depth refers to the quality of the audio that's going to be recorded, and the bits basically refer to how detailed the resolution of each sample of audio is as it's being recorded. So obviously the higher the bit depth, the greater the resolution, the greater the reproduction will be, but also the more hard drive space it'll take up. 24-bit is sort of the current norm of working with, and 16-bit is what we need to use when we're burning to audio CDs, and we can render 24-bit files down to 16-bit through a process called dithering at the end of our mixing to get it down to CD format. But for now I'm going to work in 24-bit, and as I say, that's sort of the modern norm for working with. We need to choose a sample rate, and this refers to when we're recording audio, how many samples per second are going to be captured. And again, the greater the number of samples captured, the more accurate the capturing is going to be. Now, 44.1 refers to 44,100 samples per second, and that's audio CD format, and it's mostly what's used for audio and music recording. 48,000 samples per second is often used in video and post-production. And we have higher sample rates, and depending on which audio hardware you're using, you might go all the way up to 192, but these are the common ones for now. The greater resolutions are more taxing on your system, but they're certainly used in high-end music recording studios. For now, I'm going to stick with 44.1. And I/O settings refers to how the inputs and outputs are labeled within your Pro Tools session, and you can label them manually, or you can choose from a bunch of preset input and output labels pertaining to different hardware control surfaces. And we can also just use last used, and it'll identify what's on your system pretty accurately. We have an option to use interleaved files, meaning when we're recording in stereo or multi-channel formats like surround sound, instead of having separate files generated for left and right in the case of stereo, and in case of surround, there'll be 5 or 7 different channels that are created. So instead of having all separate files that are stored separately as separate media files on your hard drive in the audio files folder, we can have an interleaved file where it's one file that contains all the multiple channels. So let's create a blank session for now. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to store it in my Pro Tools 11 Explain folder, and let's call it PT11 Explained. So this is what an empty session looks like. Let's go full screen for the moment and look briefly at some of the file menu options. We save over there. We can save as, which allows us to create another version of this document. So I can create, let's say, Pro Tools 11 Explained version 2, version 3, etc. We can save a copy in, which allows us to create an entire new session folder in another location. And we can include or exclude various media at various resolutions and formats, depending on what we choose there. And we can also create our own templates and save as template. And here, if you want the template to appear in the Quick Start dialog box amongst all the other templates, we need to install a template in the system location here. And we can create our own templates and put them in any of these pre-existing categories, or we can create our own category and name it over there. We can optionally create a template and put it anywhere on the hard drive, but if we put it in an alternate location, it won't appear in the Quick Start dialog box, which is fine, but that's important to be aware of. And we can optionally include media with our templates. Like, for example, you might create a click track that you like and want to save it with all your templates. And just to quickly look at where the templates are stored on the hard drive, we can see here that it's stored in the root level of the hard drive in the users folder in the specific user, that's my user. In the documents folder, there's a folder called Pro Tools, and in the Pro Tools folder, there's a session templates folder, and there are the categories, and inside are the actual template files. And finally, to toggle the Quick Start dialog box from within Pro Tools, we go to the Preferences available from the Setup menu at the bottom here, and in the Display tab, we can toggle the Show Quick Start dialog when Pro Tools starts option over here. So that's it. Welcome to Pro Tools 11 Explained. Fasten your seatbelts. We got a lot to cover in the next few hours.